Hello, good evening. It's starting to feel like a Friday morning routine for me, where we have this call, it starts, and then I have to admit each and every one of you, which is something that we've talked about, I don't know how many times, which is frustrating. I'm ready to switch to Zoom, I guess. So maybe I should stop talking about it. We should actually switch. The inevitable issue is that I'll be running my mouth and somebody will be sitting there politely and patiently waiting. And then I miss admitting them. It's just, that's not how it's supposed to be. So. All right, a couple of obligatory dad jokes while I entertain you while we wait for people to join. Please do jump into the meeting minutes. The meeting minutes are posted in the chat in Google Meet. If you don't have the link to the meeting minutes, just say so. If you do, make sure you go in and record your name, record your attendance today. At the end of the year, what we're going to do is go back through all of the attendees over the year and put everyone's name in a list. We're going to go through a raffle. We're going to send out $1,000 to, oh, no, just kidding. We're not going to do that, but you should put your name into the meeting minutes. Now, having said that, I think that that's actually, that was entirely a joke about $1,000, but maybe we should do that and send out a Layer 5. Well, what is this? A Layer 5 jacket. It's an Under Armour. It feels nice. There, I said that I'm looking at an extra one hanging up right over there. There's one of those. There's some other shirts too. I think Nitish Malhotra is one of the lucky winners of one of those Layer 5 shirts. We'll see if he sports his Layer 5 shirt today as a Nerd Shirt Friday thing. I don't know. Okay, we're 4 minutes after the hour, so about 30 more seconds and we'll get going.
Hi, Lee. How I can get Layer 5 shirt? Because I'm running some workshops, so I needed that.
Totally. Shit. Yes. And oops, by the way, we're recording, so anyone who swears, that will be out on YouTube for everyone else later. Simon, that's a great, we need to get you a care package. We need to get you a few books, a couple of t-shirts, the full deal, I think.
Last time, Lee, I just running a workshop and happily I have connected more than 80 people in the online session. And I just intro the Docker section there, not a bit details on, but in this Saturday, I am going to hit a image hub and showing some inner details of the Docker. And I run this session in June and in July, and people switch people into the service mesh and pull some great members into this community. So I want some before pulling people into jumping area, I just want to know that there's some knowledge of how we are working, so they can show their interest on that. So I'm running workshops June and July for the entire month, Saturday every week.
Fantastic. Let's put that into the announcements, by the way. June, July. I guess it was sort of May, June, July. It was kind of Docker, Kubernetes, service mesh. Is that sort of the sequence?
Yes, definitely. But I'm just running in our local community. That's a previous I'm member of it. I'm also a member of Code Movement in Pakistan. So I'm just delivering these content from there. And a part of that, I'm just hitting out some members. So just a local community meetup, but very happy that's more than 80 people. And for the next session, more than 150 people join. So I'm really happy that people are jumping into it.
We'll do it. It costs more than I would like, but we'll put a couple books in the mail and a shirt and whatever we can find. Yeah, that's great.
Lee, I just need a t-shirt, and from the thanks to the Nuno, I have just my terminal looks like Meshery is the right. And I'm really wondering how I can do that, but when jumping into Slack, he's just showing how to do that. I'm really happy, and now my terminal totally looks like a very great Meshery logo inside it.
That's awesome. I'm going to put that as a small topic, and we should sign that. Should absolutely be a forthcoming tweet, right, from you or on the Meshery Twitter. Okay, very good. So we're 8 after a couple. So welcome everyone. Thanks for coming today. Let's get rolling. If you don't have the meeting minutes in front of you, there's a link inside the chat. Housekeeping items. This is a Layer 5 community meeting. We have, I'm not sure. We have almost a meeting going on every day now. A lot of initiatives going on, which is great. And for each of those, we record them and post them on YouTube. And so just a note, don't be surprised when your good works are being shown off publicly. That's very intentional. Also, a point of order, there are some newcomers on the call. And so two notes. One is that there are, of the other meetings that I mentioned, they're on specific topics and they're run a little bit differently than this one. Everyone is welcome to join all of the meetings, by the way. There's a community calendar that has all the meetings on them. And so jump in on whatever topic interests you the most, or all of them. On this particular community meeting, this is it's a broad ecosystem set of discussions about things that are generally related to service mesh topics. And so, yeah, so from week to week, the agenda varies quite a bit. We get lots of folks, from all around coming in. On that, lastly then, is to welcome some of the folks who haven't been, some of the people on this call who haven't introduced before. It would be fantastic if you took just a minute and said hi to everybody, just introduced yourself briefly. And I'm gonna go through and call out a couple of folks just to help in the sequencing. But Harsh, Anand, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah. So Haley, am I audible?
You are.
Yeah. So I'm a sophomore at ID Jodhpur, and I'm just excited to be here. I'm looking forward to contribute to the community.
Nice. Yeah, thank you, Harsh. It's good to have you. And Harsh, real quick, which part of India are you in? What city?
I live in the north of India, like Haryana.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Since we're gonna be friends, I'm gonna, and since you're gonna make a lot of other friends in the community, I think I can just begin to be honest with you right now. I think I tend to favor Indians from the southern part of India. So I'm sorry. It's only gonna go so far for us.
Yeah, that won't be a problem. Yeah. As a matter of fact, me too.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, very good. Nice to have you, Harsh.
Yeah, pleasure.
All right. Dhruv, I think you might have introduced before, but I don't know if you want to take a moment to say hello.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Dhruv. I'm colleague of Harsh from ID Jodhpur itself. I live at Vadodara in Gujarat, in India, and I'm excited to get some work done and learn new things.
Nice. That's perfect. That's exact. Those two things are exactly what I hope that everyone does.
Yeah,
And it's not Dhruv, it's Dhruv. Okay, very
Dhruv.
good. Dhruv.
Yeah.
Cool. Very good. All right.
Okay.
Miss Singh, Akanshka, if yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Akanksha, master student from Delhi, India. I recently joined Layer5 community and I'm really excited to be a part of it. And I'm looking forward to contributing and learning from everyone. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah. Thank you for your patience with me and your first name as well. It's nice to have you. Adeep, have you introduced on the community call? I can't remember. I know you have on other ones.
Yeah, I was present in the last community call.
Okay. All right. Fair. We've heard enough from you then. Why don't you be quiet and go back? All right. Fair enough. Tanuj.
Everyone, I'm Tanuj. I'm also from IIT Jodhpur. Happy to be here.
Nice. Yep. I'll withhold any wisecracks about IIT Jodhpur. I think we all know what kind of suspects come from there. And lastly, but not least, Shriti Chandra.
Hey everybody, I'm Shriti Chandra. I'm a student of Manipal Institute from India. I live in the northern part. Sorry to disappoint you. Patna. I'm excited to join the Layer5 community and work with everybody.
Right. Friday was getting off to just such a great start. And then a couple of Northerners come in here and just, all right, very good. Thanks for coming, everyone. Very nice to have each of you. And thanks for putting up with me harassing you. So that's great. A few announcements, some of which from me, some of which from others in the community. As a matter of fact, the first announcement, Kush, do you want to speak to the first announcement?
Okay, so we are back into Google's season of docs. We are participating under the umbrella organization CNCF, and you can find the project idea on the link I have mentioned in the community docs. So we are hoping to get some great submission of some great technical writers for the program.
And more to that point, there is hopefully much more to that particular internship than just text. There's quite a bit of things to be done programmatically by way of documentation or by way of helping facilitate learning for people about service meshes in general. We're going to be talking about console in one of the other announcements. And actually, when I think about learning service meshes in general, like HashiCorp has done a fantastic job with their series of trainings about learning console. And so anyway, so I'm pleased that we've got GSOD, or that we're there as well. So it's the internships just keep kind of rolling in. If interested, if interested, I guess, just signal Kush in the Slack, and then he'll point you to the more formal process for applying so that your candidacy can be considered. If you know others that you think might be interested, point them out. So thank you for that, Kush. And thank you for leading the way on that as well. we just another quick announcement with a couple of meetups that we host here in Austin. One is Cloud in Austin, Texas. One's Cloud Native Austin. We were going to have a Linkerd workshop last night. We canceled. Too much stuff going on. We canceled a few days ago, but just hard to keep up with it all. So that's more or less the reasoning. The next announcement, a new version of console. Blake, do you want to speak to this?
He's not on the call, I think.
Oh, no. Oh, okay. I swear he's just in the meeting minutes. Okay. That's where I was seeing his face. And so maybe he'll be on a little bit later. So just in case he is, he will do a better job of covering it than I will. So we'll put a pin in that one. Next one is that so we've been preparing, we've been doing a lot with Meshery, one of the main projects in the community, but there's a number of more projects sprouting up. One of the goals that we've long had for the Meshery project, and really for a couple of the other projects as well, is their potential entrance into the CNCF. And really, irrespective of whether or not any of the projects go into the CNCF, we want to solicit, earnestly solicit feedback from adopters, from users of the tools, of the things that we produce here. And so we've begun to do that in a nascent way for just a few days ago for Meshery, and ask a few people to identify the fact that they use or have adopted Meshery. And so so there's the start of a list. If you represent an organization and you've used Meshery in your organization, then I encourage you to submit a pull request and list either yourself or your organization down, and that'll be helpful. That inspires the confidence of others as they go to use Meshery or the other projects as well. All right, last one up. Simon spoke just a little bit. I don't know that this requires anything else, Simon, but just the fact that I think the one thing here, Simon, as you're organizing those meetups, that adding those to the content calendar will help in terms of us helping elevate them and publicize them a little bit. I'll put a
Yes,
link.
I definitely added that.
Oh, okay.
I did some previous as well. We are talking about our YouTube channel for listening our some workshop. I added those in the calendar as well, so we get a reminder call that these things we have to do as well.
I see. Very good. I see the reminder for the first YouTube webinar. That's great.
Yes, and Lee, one just a simple announcement about HashiCorp that's I'm listening here. So anything that's changing, versioning about other meshes, what we have to do anything about on that on our behalf when our service mesh changes their version and come up with a new version. So as a Meshery, we have to adopt as well. We doesn't need to be adding something. What kind of the process?
Our build. So actually, of the working group that you're focused within, the continuous integration working group, I think what we spell out in there is that in that strategy document, we say that we would like to support the current version of each service mesh, and maybe I think we say 2 versions back. And so that's the goal. That is not the case for each of the adapters, that we have enough rigor around our process and the way in which we're tracking the fact that there are new releases of each of those meshes. So it's an ongoing area of need. As soon as that working group is truly a machine that will really help with automated integration testing and the ability to kind of keep pace, because there's a new version of Linkerd that came out as well. And yeah, so the more that we get done in the CI working group, I think the better off we'll be. All right, very good. Those are the announcements. Just a quick, I don't know, maybe this is an announcement, just a quick topic. I think a lot of you know that we participate in the CNCF in a number of different ways, the various community members here. We announced last week that Nuno DeCarmo in the community was just accepted into the Cloud Native Ambassadors program. So there's a variety of people in the community doing good deeds inside the CNCF. One of those is spending time inside of this special interest group focused on networking. We just had a meeting yesterday. There was a project that was presented. The project, and so all of the topics and the projects that are presented here are relevant to us. Meshri, as a matter of fact, has been on the docket to be presented, and that time frame has passed. We haven't presented yet. Anyway, just a quick note, BFE, this project was presented yesterday. I don't expect anyone is familiar with BFE because as of yesterday, I wasn't either. But it's a layer 7 load balancer written in Go. And so if you're interested in learning more about it, there's slides and the link to the proposal in the doc. Whoops, in the minutes. Next is a topic for everyone. And I hope a topic that some of you will get fairly deep into. And it's the notion that, well, that there's a new Slack channel created this morning to help us, essentially overhaul the Layer5 IO website, move it from Jekyll to Gatsby and Strappy. That's described inside of that initiative is described inside of a design spec that you'll find inside that channel. There's a vision for what the next generation of the Layer5 IO site will be. I've said it a few times here, and so I know a number of you heard me describe the vision. That vision is a bit unique and probably unlike any site that you can find. If someone can find a site that does what we describe in that doc, I'll send you a t-shirt, I guess. So big aspirations for what we might do next there, but we're going to need a lot of help, particularly those of you that are into React, between web programming and visual design, graphic design, particularly if you're into visual design, CSS and vector graphics, those things, you'll be most impactful in that project. So the weekly meetings have just started for that next generation of the Layer5 website. They're on Monday mornings. Again, those are on the community calendar. So please jump in if it's remotely interesting, and just maybe check out the doc, and then and if it's not interesting, then don't jump in. Before we go to the next topic, any questions on this topic? Or anyone maybe have read what that vision is, but it not quite have resonated? Okay, fair enough. Just ping me if otherwise. Next topic up is the notion that Tanuj has been doing some good things in his short time here already, and now is a great time to demo, to show off some of his early work. So, Tanuj, do you want to paste links to the short intro and outro videos that you've created? And maybe people can watch them independently. I'll bring one of them up here and share and see how well that streams across. Tanuja, anything you want to say here to just kind of introduce the effort, give people context?
Sure. Yeah, currently, we are deciding if what is it too much green in the video. So if you will take a look at the intro 7. That is the latest version. And give your opinions on that.
Okay, fair enough. Nice. Okay, yeah. Let me say just a bit more about the thing that we're talking about. So the topic is these intro and outro video animations. Earlier, when we started this call, I said, hey, we record these calls and we post them on YouTube, and we record a lot of calls and put them out there. If you haven't seen that channel, the link to the YouTube channel is at the very top of the meeting minutes. I realize I'm not sharing my screen, so let me share. All right, so here comes the share. This is the YouTube channel. There's a few different, a lot of the talks that a lot of the calls that we have will go up here, and they're all right. They're okay, but they just jump right into the meeting. There's no intro or little intro jingle or outro little jingle, and so Tanuj has been giving his hand to creating a couple. Let me try playing one, this latest one here, and actually just before I do. Let's make sure that everyone can have a look at it when you like to. We want to get your feedback on what you think. Let's see if the sound comes through or not. Oh, yeah, that's the first time I've seen that the logo coming up big. So that's cool, Tanuj. Anyway, he's going through a couple of different versions, and so Tanuj, if you don't mind, if you're able to we can open these up and put links in into the meeting minutes so that people can check them out and give some feedback.
Yeah, I shared the link of my personal drive that is open for.
Oh, very good. Okay, and that's in the meeting minutes. There we go. So hopefully that'll spice up the videos that we share, the recordings that we have. Any feedback for Tanuj? I know it was a brief video. Thoughts, feedback.
Lay, I checked the animation, looks great, but I think for animation, kind of to need to know that where we are at right now. We are starting from their containers, orchestration, then jumping to kind of that animation that's appealing to the user that where we are at now. So kind of the gesture that I am using the channel that's in the VR channel and other channel. They are showing them they are starting from container, then from orchestration.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Actually, so Simon, I'll interrupt and say, so this particular animation is just to do, be a brief little jingle just before someone watches like a recording of this meeting. And so it is not to provide kind of a marketing video overview of the space or of the projects.
Okay. It's just flashing out the start and then at the end of the video. That's we are on the call. That's we are doing. That's got it.
Okay, well, we'll give people some time to check them out and give some feedback. If you have feedback, just pop it into Slack, into the general channel. The next topic up, well, as a matter of fact, what time is it? It's 10, it's halfway through. Let's skip this one and get to some good work that others have done in the community. Dhruv, do you want to share your screen and maybe tell people about this PR?
Yeah, sure. It's not a big deal, to be honest. I was just checking out the UI and I found this PR. It's a good one. So just get acquainted with the UI and stuff. I tried to solve it. Wait a second. One sec. Just added a slider for hiding and showing data. That's all.
Nice.
I guess there are some improvements we can definitely do in the UI front.
In general, yes.
Yeah.
So this is nice. So just context for, I guess, everyone else is that one of Meshry's functions is to do performance tests, and it'll send. Right now, it only supports one type of protocol, but forthcoming support for other protocols is forthcoming. So gRPC, TCP, hopefully UDP, and maybe NATS at some point. But for the time being, and actually, Dhruv, if you can, if you're still able to share, I've got a couple of points of feedback. Just
yeah, sure.
And so as people go to generate load and use Meshry to do a performance test using an HTTP endpoint, many of you are probably familiar with the notion that you're not always going to want to be doing HTTP gets or doing using that HTTP action. You might want to do an HTTP post and send a bunch of posts, and maybe that post or that get needs to include different header, different metadata inside the request. So cookie or different headers, different content types. And so we've begun to get a bit more sophisticated. As we do, the form becomes unwieldy and we need to refactor the user experience. So Dhruv, thank you for more or less taking kind of the collection of advanced options and collapsing those so that the user isn't overwhelmed with so many inputs. By the way, does anyone study human-centered design or user-centered design? I guess the question is, how many inputs does the average, can a human digest, or should they be able to look at a given time? And anyway, the magic number there is, well, it's actually the magic number for a lot of things, but it's 7. I haven't counted what we have on the screen, but we had more than 7. And so, Dhruv, thank you for this. I wonder if a couple of items that you might take into consideration the load generator section where we have Ford.io, WRK2. It won't be long before we're going to have a third one there, which is good. But it feels, to me, feels better if it's at the bottom of the form because it's just a different style input, I guess is the thing. I think overall, the whole thing needs to be reworked. As a matter of fact, overall, people won't be using a form at some point. We're going to have a different interface for this entirely. Okay, so that's one piece of feedback. If we can move the load generators to the bottom. The second piece of feedback is the add request data. Maybe we could wordsmith maybe that's, advanced options or something. But the UX, the component that we're using as the UX, as a user, I have to say it would be unintuitive for me. I would not be expecting when I click on that add request data, I would be expecting to be able to type something into that field. And so I wonder if there's a different control, like a collapse, a show hide, a faucet, like a triangle, or something else that we can use to intimate to the user that what they're about to have is a different interaction than the rest of the text fields.
Yeah, it can be done. I was planning to do that next.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Any other feedback for Dhruv? Anyone want to suggest something else? It's an improvement already, so we're headed in the right way. This is good. Okay, all right, very good. Well, thank you, Dhruv. That's nice. Next topic up is release pages. I think between Shivai and Ashish. Is Shivai on the call?
Nope.
All right. So we won't talk about that. Let me share the meeting minutes again. But Ashish, do you want to speak to this? Oh, you know what? Actually, you know what? I think I was misinformed, Ashish, or I was misinformed. Maybe that's a polite way of me saying I misunderstood what was going on. And so, Ashish, I don't know that this is an active ask. Let me not waste everyone's time on the call by re-explaining what the situation is, but rather say, I think I asked you to do the wrong thing. And so let me take that back and get with you later. So false alarm. Two more topics that we have. The first one is to just go back to the announcements. So Blake is on the call now. And Blake, I did not attempt to do justice to the 1.8 release. So do you want to, can we tell people about this? What can we?
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Leah. I saw the agenda, joined a little late. I thought maybe you had already covered it. So appreciate you giving the opportunity. Yeah, so yesterday we just released the general availability of console 1.8, and it's got a handful of really new and exciting features. I think the ones we've seen the most interest in are ingress gateways and terminating gateways. And what these provide, ingress gateways are similar to ingresses you're familiar with in Kubernetes and use today. This is just an out-of-the-box ingress based on Envoy that is provided and managed by Console. So you don't have to deploy a third-party solution when using Console Service Mesh if you don't want to. You can just spin this up and use Console to configure everything, both east-west communication and north-south into your service mesh. And then terminating gateways are kind of the inverse of ingress gateways. They enable connectivity for services in the mesh, or they enable services in the mesh to reach out and talk to things that are outside the mesh. Like an example would be if you want to expose an AWS RDS database inside your service mesh. You can register that service, and then that gateway was the egress proxy and can enforce some access policies, as well as maybe redo some encryption when it's initiating that connection outbound. So pretty exciting features. Obviously, there's other things that are under the hood. but I definitely recommend checking it out. We just released the updated Helm chart for 1.8 yesterday, which makes it easy to deploy these gateway resources as well. So definitely give it a look.
It's It's funny. I just got a text message, and the text message had HashiCorp in the something weird. Anyway, Blake, the ingress gateways. Wow, yes. There's a reason why this bullet point is the first bullet point. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. We're super excited about it, and the feedback from folks that have tried it, the whole release so far has been overwhelmingly positive. So we think it's a great, obviously great release from our perspective, but it's great that it's really solving challenges that practitioners have with the product. So as a product manager, that just makes me really happy and more fuzzy feelings inside. So.
This last, not to overlook WAN Federation or anything, but just this last one is probably actionable by the for all of us, for this community. So it's right, for ingress for both of the gateway types and the WAN Federation. So yeah, I think in general, actually we've got a lot to do, I think, in general in that adapter, but that's a good note to take, that it's there are net new constructs, so to speak, so the ingress gateway, the terminating gateway, and the WAN Federation mesh gateway. So 3. Yeah. Boy, I get this was the gate. This was yeah. I'm not going to make any bad jokes, but yeah, okay. That's awesome. Any comments for Blake, or any just kind of questions on the difference between the gateways? And nice to see that just the highlight between open source and enterprise. Always good to just for clarity on where the line is.
Yeah, we definitely want to call that out just to avoid any confusion. If folks are curious about the differences between the gateways, I think each of those links, so we need to update this blog post. There's a new blog for terminating gateway, but all of those links point to blog posts which describe in more detail what the gateways are, what they provide, the value is for them, and then some of them talk about how to actually configure the gateways as well.
This is fun. This is coincidental because earlier, just before Blake was on, I was saying we have a new Google Season of Docs internship, and we'll be doing some amount of training, or creation of training and tutorials. And I was saying, like, hey, the HashiCorp has this down pat, that just very well done trainings. And so there's already training on 1.8 functionality. So this is nice. Also, this is kind of nice. You don't often see a diagram or ingress gateways kind of diagrammed in this way. So this is good to expand people's minds about, just something so simple as having 2 lines coming out of it is just, I think it's actually a hard thing for people to initially grok. It's like, hey, the fact that there's a service name indicator or SNI. Hey, if I'm running multiple services and they're all running on the same port, how am I, and that's not necessarily specific to service meshes, but.
Yeah, one of the other benefits about the console ingress gateway is that you can also use it to fail over to all other data centers. So you can leverage mesh gateways and dynamically reroute traffic to a secondary DC if services in a local DC are down, and it'll still use MTLS from that ingress gateway to the destination in the remote data center. So pretty powerful. You're able to use all the same Layer 7 constructs that you use for east-west traffic for that north-south traffic flow as well.
And Blake, what's the counting service?
So in this particular guide, it is talking about, in order to follow this, it's laying out what you'll need to walk through the guide. And these are just sample applications. The counting and the dashboard service are the applications which being used to show kind of this whole zero trust networking and two applications configuring how you allow communication and all of that. So they're just part of the sample here.
Oh, very good. Okay. Good. Yeah, the dashboard sounded like an actual piece of the product or piece of the mesh. And then, okay. Nice. Any other questions for Blake?
And Blake has a sign here. One, I think, one credit that goes to HashiCorp team. I think Docker has a wonderful experience of their documents. And if I think anybody else have a great documentation, that's HashiCorp side. Every product I'm using, there's a very tremendous amount of documentation. Really hats off for you, for your HashiCorp team guy. But one thing I want to know, what a WAN federation, what does mean? I talk about and learning about, but it doesn't control the concept. What is for WAN federation?
Yeah, good question. So, I think one, we kind of realized that name isn't so descriptive. We're maybe looking at opportunities to change it to better clarify what it provides. But what it does is console by default for many years has supported federating multiple data centers together in order to perform service discovery across different data center environments. And with Service Mesh, when we introduced that we introduced Mesh Gateways in console version 1.6. What happened is when you would normally set up federation, you'd have to expose your console servers on the public internet or on your direct connect, whatever. They need to be reachable by the remote DC. And then the Service Mesh traffic separately, service-to-service communication would be routed through the Mesh Gateways. With this WAN federation over Mesh Gateways, we've collapsed both of those different traffic paths onto one traffic path. So the console servers no longer have to be exposed on the internet. They sit behind the gateways. So you reduce the number of public IPs that you have, reduce kind of the server's attack surface, and now everything flows through that encrypted channel that the gateways are using for service-to-service traffic as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, Blake, definitely makes sense. I think the word ban doesn't speak out to me, but it's really very like I've heard about this term a lot, but it doesn't kind of. Thanks for the explanation. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. And again, thanks for the feedback. There's other features in console that have been around for a while, and we've found that the names don't really resonate well with folks. So again, we are looking at opportunities to fix that. And this is one of them where we think we can change it a bit to make it a little more clear and apparent of what it actually does.
Nice. Kudos on the release. Always a sigh of relief. You're going to have a happy weekend, I suspect. All right, we had one other topic, not horrifically important. And so before I go into it, I'll ask this. Does anyone have any questions or a topic that you want to go over? I'm particularly looking at some of the first timers on the call, things like just like areas that you're looking for assistance on or that are maybe a bit cloudy in your mind, because then we can get you connected with the right person to get you up and running. And I know it's a big ask in front of a lot of people to raise your hand and say, hey, but you could use some help or something. But so we'll hit this next topic then. We have 10 minutes left. I don't know if we'll need all 10 or not, but there's so there's some work being done on something that Blake and I have been talking about, and that is the Service Mesh Performance Working Group. That working group is going to address a number of topics. One of those will be the Service Mesh Performance Specification. which is, well, I guess like most things that we do in the community is service mesh agnostic, and is and anyway, as intended, it has been being iterated on recently and being improved on and becoming more of a real boy. And so in context of this, there are some, so Meshry is and will be continue to be an implementation of this specification. In context of that, there are some forthcoming features. I don't recall if I have Meshry up and running, but let me pull it up if I do. Some forthcoming features around the performance tests, basically performance management. I think I've got, anyway, I'll try to, anyway, so, so some of those will require that the distinction between user preferences, system settings, and how one can override the next. Let me pull up Meshry briefly, because I think this additional context will help as I talk about these preferences and these settings. So I'm starting Meshry. All right, thank you, Nuno. See, oh, Nuno, the PowerShell configuration that you shared, we should be social with that. We should show folks that was maybe it's a 50-word blog post or it's a tweet or something, but that's too cool to not share. Okay. All right. So Meshry is up. I'm going to go to the performance test area. Here is what Dhruv was just showing an improvement upon this area earlier. A couple of forthcoming enhancements. One will be support for Nighthawk, Envoy's load generator, and then ultimately some support for distributed load testing as well. Along with that, this page will get complicated. These capabilities will get sophisticated enough that we'll ultimately need ultimately people who use it frequently will get pretty tired of coming in and typing everything back in their cookies and doing the whole. And so recently, I think it was on Wednesday, Kush had demoed some new unreleased preferences, that there will be a fourth tab here in settings to deal with controlling global preferences, like global settings for the fact that when you initially deploy Meshry, by default, it's Fortio. It's Fortio that is the default load generator, but it may be the case that you're always trying to use WRK2, and so you'd rather just configure it, set those global defaults so that the page loads with a certain set of things pre-configured. That's great, and that will be you can adjust the global defaults for Meshry, and those will affect everyone. Those global settings will be under settings. There will be that fourth tab. Then as a user, though, when you get into running specific types of tests, and you're going to want to run, soak test A for service counter, that you're going to have the URLs and all these other things. You're going to want the ability to save this test profile, give it a name, recall it by name, update it, delete it, and ultimately schedule it. That means that you've got your own things that you as a user are creating, and Meshry is a multi-user tool. And so where your individual performance test profiles are stored and who has access to them, and where your preferences about sending statistics and other forthcoming preferences, and how those align and can potentially overlap with the global defaults, that's something that needs consideration. And so while Kanishkar in particular, and I think, and Kush as well, and some of the rest of you are working in this area, the question is, well, what are these different preferences? Which one takes precedence over the next? And so here's a fresh slide in the Meshery architecture deck that speaks to settings and preferences, kind of their state in Meshery, and how they would, which of those settings are maybe immutable, that they are deployment time choices, not things that you would change at runtime potentially. How certain of these settings are things that users can maybe affect by hiding from being visible in the UI. Maybe there are a bunch of service mesh adapters deployed, but they only care about 2 of them. So while they might, if that user were to remove the adapter, that would affect everyone using that instance of Meshery. So ultimately, we'll let users either show or hide those adapters. We'll begin to have controls around access. And so this slide begins to, hopefully, this slide is forward-looking. All of these concepts aren't clearly defined and laid out, and that's what this slide is trying to do. So Kush, is Kanishkar on? Because I think he's looking for this.
No.
Okay. Maybe Kush, then maybe any comments from you or from anyone else about the intention here?
So the performance settings defaults and the user performance test profiles, they'll be both different endpoints, right?
Totally, because the performance test profiles will become its own object, its own construct. Yeah.
So that was the issue which I and Kanishkar was discussing yesterday. So I think this slide pretty solves the problem.
Yeah. Yep. So to kind of repeat it very briefly, it's when someone deploys a vanilla instance of Meshery, that there will be certain default settings in the performance screen. Right now, Fortio is an example of like having a default setting, and the number of concurrent requests and other things, those all have a default of 0, or the duration, it has a default of 30 seconds. Soon, for the entire system, a user will be able to go in and change those default settings system-wide. In the future, individual users will be able to set their own preferences as to what those defaults are. And then beyond that, at some point, we'll have a new capability for different test profiles in which those profiles will have their own configuration settings. Users will be able to save those profiles and recall them. So about 3 different ways that performance test configuration can be manipulated. So a little bit of some different rules around how that works. We're at the top of time. Any comments on this before we end today? So if you want to soak on this slide a little bit, it's just in the community team drive. It's in the Meshery architecture slides. So it's there for you to make comments on. And yeah. Okay, fair enough. Thanks for coming today. Same time next week. We'll see you all next Friday. Bye, guys.
Bye. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye.